This meeting is being recorded.
Hello, Mark.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good. Can you see me okay and hear me okay?
Hear you fine. You're registering. I can see you fine. I'm just going
Good.
to change the screen when we get started. Mark, you've been through this before. I want to ask you some questions about the new album.
Yes, sir.
Again, feel free to take this anywhere you want. Fascinating album. So unless there's something you want to talk about, we can get started.
Yeah, let's get rolling. I'm curious to hear your thoughts. So,
Yeah, I'm going to release a video of this. Today's Wednesday. So I'll have the video up on YouTube Friday, and I'll send you a link.
okay,
Uh,
great.
I'll have the review of the album done next week about this time, but I won't have the podcast up until after the album's out. But at least
That's fine.
you'll have the review, and you'll have the video, and then you'll have a transcribed interview as well on my website, and then something else reviews a little bit later.
Preston, thank you so much, sir.
This is good stuff. So I'm going to get started, and
Mhm.
very fortunate again to have Mark Anthony Kay here to talk about his wonderful new album, Canada, Myths and Stories. Mark, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Not sure what that is. Good. So what's going on in Canada?
Not too much. Actually, we're experiencing seasonably warm weather for some reason over here. It's very funny. Usually by now we're already busting out the jackets and everything out, but I just came back from a walk in shorts and t-shirt. So,
Yeah, it's beautiful down here in Georgia too. Glad to hear it. I've been listening to Canada Myths and Stories, which is their new album, which is coming out, I believe, next week. But listening to that back to back over and over again. Um, it's a great album. Looking forward to digging into it. For those of you who are new to Slave Ages podcast, you may not know Mark's work, but he's a wonderful metal prog artist. He has a great number of albums under the Projekt Gemineye moniker. And we've also talked about his work with Joe Bailey for the Dark Monarchy. And Mark has been on the Slave of Ages podcast. I think the last time was July of this year. We talked about Weight of the World, the Dark Monarchy. Then in April, I think it was April 2023, Projekt Gemineye released a wonderful What Lies Beyond. And October 2022, which was towards the beginning of this podcast, we talked about the Yes album, Drama. Was at the time my favorite Yes album. That's kind of
yes.
changed a little bit now. And then before that, we talked about the fantastic In the Year 2022, and that was back in March 2022.
Yes.
So this is Mark. Just check out Mark. Check out Projekt Gemineye on Bandcamp because there's so many great releases, and this adds to his streak of fantastic releases. So let's start with, how did you decide the theme for Canada, Myths and Stories?
So basically, I was trying to think of a topic like you normally do, like most people do when you're starting a new record. And I thought to myself, what can I talk about that I haven't really spoken about so far in my own lyrics? And one thing is Canada. And the reason why I came up with that is because I was looking through some old photos and I came across some photos of myself and some of my old bands that I was in. And when we were touring Canada, and I thought to myself, wow, some of the pictures looked fantastic. Like we were in Prince Edward Island, we were in Nova Scotia. There was pictures of us in Winnipeg, Manitoba, and when I saw it, it brought me back to that time when we were traveling. And we were young at that time, and we didn't know much about Canada. We hardly went out of our province of Ontario, so we didn't know what was surrounding us. And once we got out there and started driving around, we really discovered what a fantastic country this was, not only just geographically, but once we started meeting some of the people on the East Coast and across the country, there were a lot of generous people that we met and very fantastic people, and we learned a lot just through our travel. So I thought to myself, why not make a record that's sort of a love letter from me to Canada and what I appreciate about the country. But of course, as you noticed when you looked through the record, I wasn't only just praising it, I also wanted to make it an equal sort of view on it. I can't honestly say that Canada is a perfect country. We have our problems as well, and I wanted to make sure that I kind of touched base on some of that as well.
Well, thank you for that. I mean, the songs are really detailed lyrically, and of course, the music is extremely strong. And I took notes on each song because I'm in the process of writing a review of the album. So let me first start off with, well, let me ask a question. When did you start the project? Because I know last time we talked, when we talked about the Dark Monarchy piece, you were working on a number of projects.
Yeah, so I've been of late working on many things. What I basically do is every day I'll come down here and I'll open up my computer, and if something comes to me, or whatever, like whether it's a keyboard piece or a guitar piece, I'll just start recording ideas down, and they may turn to nothing or they may turn into songs. And I've been very lucky of late that I've had a good role of inspiration to the point of where I have not only this record done, but I have another one already finished of Projekt Gemineye, and I'm already started on another one as well. So the music is coming to me, and there's that saying, when the muse is lit, just go with it, right? So I don't want to just suddenly stop and say no, it's too much of a good thing. Why not just keep going with it? And if I have extra songs, then they could be used for many things. Maybe they won't be a Projekt Gemineye thing. Maybe I'll donate it to a compilation record I might come out or something, or who knows, right? But I love writing. I love the process of writing. I love the process of recording music. So I just keep writing and writing and writing.
Mm-hmm. So right now there is one song already released, one single already out. That's a Lost Generation, right?
Yes.
So let's start there. Tell us a little bit about the Lost Generation.
The Lost Generation is a topic that is a little controversial. I mean, it's funny because I've already had one person sort of react to it, not in a negative way, but in a way that I was actually hoping this song would do, is that it actually filled me in with some information that I was unaware of about this topic. Basically, in a nutshell, it's about it's not a story. It's like what actually happened in Canada. The government and the Church of Canada took thousands of Native children from their families and from their tribes, and put them in these sort of private schools and tried to make them Catholic, right? And get them away from their way of life and tried to turn them down the more white man's way, right? And it didn't go very well. Lots of children tried to escape. Some of them died trying to escape. The ones that did stay there, some of them didn't return for some reason. Overall, it was a black eye on Canada, right? And then in the 2000s, there was a discovery of unmarked graves, right? And that became news for quite a bit of people that took to it and discovered it. And it's a big thing here in Canada. The native people of this country were very upset about it, obviously, and it became news for quite a long time. Now, the individual that contacted me, excuse me, mentioned something because, and I didn't know this, but they said that according to her, she said that she's one of these people who does a lot of research and stuff like that. And while she believes that it happened because she was also she is a native person as well. She said, and this is very interesting, that she's never seen evidence of these unmarked being of native Indian descent. So I thought that was kind of interesting that she brought that up, that there was never anything shown or proven that it was that way. But I take it this way: the lyrics of this song were meant to be more of like a message or like a sort of an awareness, like a warning of mistakes that could have happened back then, and not to make the same mistakes again, right?
Right.
And I've always viewed my lyrics as that way, more like not a finger wag, but more of like like a lesson learned. Like if you were to go to school, like this happened, let's not make the same mistakes again, and let's move forward, right? So I think musically it went well. I also enjoyed recording this song musically. I thought it had a lot of strong parts in it. In fact, it has probably one of my favorite guitar solos I've done. That harmonized guitar solo, and I thought went really well. I'm very happy with that, and I think vocally I did a good job as well with this one.
Well, yeah, the guitars are fantastic on this song. But we'll talk about a few of the other songs where I just, especially like, God, Ghost Ship. What the hell, Mark? That's the intro is incredible. Anyway, we'll get to that in a second. But yeah, the
Yeah.
guitars are strong. One thing I really appreciate about The Lost Generation is that your vocals are prominent in the mix and clear so you can hear the story. And
Yes.
then, you know, it takes multiple listens because there's so much there musically in terms of guitars, the bass, and the bass drums and the synths.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. So I guess I'm jumping around a little bit, but if you could talk a little about some of the tools you use on the Lost Generation in terms of guitars, bass, synth.
Sure. So the guitars that I use this time, I predominantly use my Les Paul on this because I feel most comfortable with that guitar at this moment. It could change, you know how it is. You know, you're a bass player, and you know maybe this bass one day might feel good, the next week it'll be a different one, right? So this one right now feels comfortable. I got a couple of different gadgets in between as well. You know how we are us musicians, we love to find gadgets and pedals and stuff like that. So I'm using this Universal Audio Lion pedal, which is a pedal that replicates absolutely perfectly, I might add, a Marshall 1968 amplifier. So, and it sounds fantastic. And I used it a lot for this album for some of the guitar tones for the solos and for the rhythm guitars. So that's added a new element to it. And you know how that is. Once you get something like this, you get inspired. Ooh, a new toy, and then you know, all of a sudden you start coming up with all these riffs and ideas. So it definitely helped in that department. The bass guitar, I've been very loyal to my Ibanez SD500 bass that I have. It's one of those electric ones with the active EQ on it and stuff like that. And another interesting thing, I bought myself a sort of like a clone version of a Neve 1073 preamp. Right, it's a little box like this, and they're very well known to be a specific kind of British sounding tone. So all I do is plug into it, take the output into my mixer in there, and I realized the difference right away. It's like all of a sudden the bass guitar got much more thicker and had this tone to it. I was like, wow, like what are the difference from just one little unit that it can make to a sound? So again, inspirational for me. Then made me start, fiddling with a little bit more bass lines and stuff like that. So that was helpful. The drums, I'm very loyal, as you know, to my Easy Drummer programming and stuff like that, and it turned really well. I mean, I'm always fiddling with new ideas with that. I always got different drum kits that I can use and stuff, and it sounds really good. I think that the drums turned out really nicely on this. And again, as a mixer and engineer, I always spend at least part of my day trying to read some articles about mixing and stuff. So that's always helped with my mixes down the line.
Yeah, I think it's perfect because every instrument you can hear. There are many layers to the music, and the vocals are right up front, which is great with the subject matter. So there are 5 songs on the album. There'll be 5 songs on the album. As we talked about, The Lost Generation is out now. The rest of the album comes out October 31st. So I'm going to dig into some of the other songs, which
Yeah.
I'm not sure if they're in the right sequence, but we'll go this way.
Yeah.
Drive North, 1902. And my note was that first of all, that fantastic rock piano intro, and I I wrote Jeff Down kind of synth sound to it.
Yeah.
Talk about the song, Mark.
This one was fun to do. Let's talk about it musically first. Like you said, the piano. I don't consider myself a great piano player by any stretch of the imagination, but that's an instrument that I'm getting better at every day because I love piano. My father used to play piano all the time. We had a piano in the house, I still do, and just noodling around it. The more you fiddle with it, the better you get at it, and I'm starting to get a lot better. Plus, the keyboard that's behind me here, I have a Roland RD08 over behind me, and that has an absolutely fantastic piano thing. It has weighted keys just like a real piano. So it inspires me to play piano more because of that. So that riff came to me one evening while fiddling around with it. I was like, oh, I kind of like that. Do, 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 do. So I kind of like recorded that. And there you go. Once I put it to a click and started recording it and putting stuff to it, it just grew and grew and grew. And then all the guitars came in. And I found that this is one of the songs where I let the piano and the keyboards kind of be a little bit more prominent and made the guitars just a teensy bit behind them a little bit, not too much, right? I'm still a rock guy at heart, right? So I had to have the guitars in there, but the piano, I had no shame with putting them up there because I really love piano and I love bands that have piano in them, as you know. Yes, and various other progressive bands use piano prominently, so I have no problem with that at all. lyrically, it was a topic matter that I found fascinating. It was about the gold rush era of the late 1800s into the 1900s. Lots of people went into the Yukon, which is a province here in Canada. Once you go north of British Columbia, there's a province there called the Yukon Territory, and there was a huge gold rush there. I believe there was like I actually even made notes of this, if you can believe this, just for exclusively for you, my friend. I made notes here. So it says here, estimated 100,000 people participated in the Klondike Gold Rush, and 30,000 of them made it to Dawson City, which is one of the main cities in the province, right? And it said by 1901, though, when the first census was taken, the population had declined to 9,000 people. So obviously, the moral of this is that people were dreaming big. You know, they had dollar signs in their eyes. Oh, gold, we're going to be rich instantly. So all these people went up there and they realized that, man, this is a little bit hard work here trying to find this gold, right? So a lot of them probably turned around and said, I'm going back home, right? And that's basically the story, is that a lot of people went up there, tried to find their way into gold and stuff like that. And afterward, some of them ended up staying and did other things. Some of them maybe, got farmland and did stuff. Some of them maybe just stayed and became merchants and stuff like that. So for some people, it wasn't a lost trip. They went there, they looked for gold. Some of them found it, some of them didn't. And the interesting part was they said that there was a few people there that actually did find gold. There was one person there that said there was two brothers that mined over $1 million worth of gold in 1 year when they went on this. So some people were very successful on this. So I kind of liked this whole imagery of people, firing up their wagons and going up there through the harsh weather. And some of them found gold, and some of them were like, "Man, this is I don't think this is a good idea. Let's turn around." So that's kind of what the story was, and I thought that the music, kind of encapsulated that idea pretty good.
Yeah, I think that lyrically it's pretty strong in terms of it takes you on that journey. You can see it. The music
Yes.
is pretty powerful, and like I said, I wrote rock piano because you weren't trying to do all the twiddly stuff like a
No.
it was just really direct, good rock and roll piano playing. So thank you for that. All right, let's shift to the song Ghost Ship. And I wrote down, I just love the chorus type guitar intros, the melodic lead intros, the double time guitar to synth section, and that great ride cymbal and bass drums.
Yeah. So this was another song that was very fun to do. I'm one of these people that enjoys audio candy, as you know how that term is. Put on the headphones and you're lost into another world. So I liked bringing in that sort of sound effect of the waves and the water and the birds flying around in the background and stuff like that. Basically, because lyrically, this song is about a ship, right? And what happened was when I went on tour with my band, we went to Nova Scotia several times. And I remember one time talking to this older gentleman. We were staying at this person's house because in Nova Scotia it's very common for them to say after you go to a concert and you play, somebody will come to you and say, "Hey, if you don't have a place to stay tonight, you're welcome to come to our house and stay," right? Which is very generous of people to do that. So I remember one time we took somebody up on the rocker. We had a great, East Coast dinner, and it was really fantastic. And one of the people there had an older like grandfather that was there, and he was telling me a lot of the legends of Nova Scotia. He's like, "Sit down, I'll tell you a great story about this country." So we sat down and listened, and he actually told me about this whole ghost ship, that there was a legend that at sometimes when you go out near the Strait of Northumberland, which is between Prince Edward Island and Nova Scotia, that people have seen a ship going down the waters there that suddenly bursts into flames, sinks, and then it will come back up from the water whole again. So it's the ghost ship of Northumberland, this one, right? And of course you think it's a story, but there has been so many sightings of it. And the funny thing is, when I looked up some of these stories on like Wikipedia and other places, there's been actually people that have said more recently, like in like the 2001 or 2005, said that they saw something very similar at night in those areas. So it's not just an old story. This is something that's been going through, that area for a long time. So is it a story? Is it real? Does this actually happen? Who knows? I mean, I'm not one to totally erase that because, I believed in some crazy things in my life, but a ghost ship, who knows? You never know. I don't know. I don't know if there are ghosts, if they're real or not, but I guess, maybe one day we'll find out when we're on other plane of existence, right? So, but it was an interesting story. I thought that it went well with the topic because it is something that's very tied to Canada, that whole area of the country, and that whole sort of storytelling. I'm sure storytelling is very prominent in other countries as well. That sort of ghost ship and these kind of areas in Canada, it's very much connected to Canada.
Well, I'm probably one of the only few people who was yelled at by John Anderson for asking an obvious question in an interview. But I'm going to ask you an obvious question because I thought
Yes.
about this with Ghost Ship, especially when you got to that middle section with the synth and guitar solos, and then the second guitar solo, the end guitar solo. Wow, mind blown. But my question is, did you come up with the concept of the music for Ghost Story before your lyrics? How did that interplay work?
Oh, okay. Yeah. So basically, I knew of having that story to be to that would appear on the record. With what song, I had no idea at that time, right? But when I wrote this and I had most of the music in there, I still wasn't sure. But when I did that introduction part at first with those guitar lines at the bit, and then I figured out, hey, you know what? I have these little sounds here that I can use for it. And then when I constructed that beginning, then right away it was obvious. Like, wait a minute, now I have this sort of water and birds that cries out for that ghost ship story in there. So that got connected as soon as that happened musically. And I'm telling you, this is one of those songs again. It was very fun to do with the guitar solos and stuff like that. I really enjoyed recording this one.
Yeah, it shows. The song musically just smokes from beginning to end. I like the little changes in the middle. I like the solo sections. The end solo was great, and then you have the mystique around the lyrics, which around the story, which is
Yes.
almost John Anderson like. Mark, fantastic. Thank you.
Great.
Okay, so now I'm getting to the epic, which is Racing the Flames. Again, some great piano, then the guitars building and building, some powerful bass, great double bass drum playing, and time signature changes. Tell me about Racing the Flames.
Racing the Flames is one that I really, really like to do. Of course, I liked all of them, but this is where my heart lies. As you know, Preston, epic songs, 12 minutes long. No sort of confinement to myself. No, only two choruses and that's it. So I kind of wrote it where there was no limit on what I was going to do. So again, the piano at the beginning, and one of the things that I put in there that I'm always happy to hear that I did because I'm a big fan of the Hammond organ. I've always loved Tony Kaye and his Hammond organ playing, and I have some great Hammond in this song. Near the beginning of the song, like I think it's about 2-3 minutes in, where I start playing with the Hammond organ in there, and I really love that sound. It's just something that warms my heart when I hear a Hammond organ, right? So it turned out very well, that part, and then the verse part I was very happy with because it was a sort of rhythmic part that I hadn't done before in any other kind of Projekt Gemineye song. So I like approaching new rhythms and new sort of progressions like that. And lyrically, this is about something again that us as Canadians know very well, and I'm sure other places in the world do too as well, especially now that the world is getting a little bit warmer every year, is forest fires. And we have them pretty bad here sometimes. As soon as we look at the calendar and it says May and June, we're like, oh, now we start getting a little worried in certain places because we have a lot of forests and a lot of stuff like that. And if those forests catch, boy, I mean, there's been some really bad ones in British Columbia. There's been some bad fires here in Ontario as well. Yeah, and it's basically just the story about a forest fire happening and people sometimes who have to evacuate the area and get out, racing the flames. I mean, it's a race against time, right? A race against the flames. You hop into your car, you get that phone call from the government saying, listen, your area is being evacuated. You get in that car and you got to get out of there, otherwise it'll be gone. And the scary part of this story is that there have been known for people to just stand their ground and say, no, I've been born in this land, I've been living in this house, there's no fires getting me out of here. I'm gonna do whatever I can to surround my house. so that the flames can't get in there. Some people will go down with the fort, so to speak, which is scary to think, because you can always rebuild a house, but you can't rebuild a body once it's been burnt, right? So I think it's a very strong thing visually to think about, and I think the music helped tell the story.
Yeah, the music's fantastic as usual. It is an epic, so it has different parts to it. You talked about the Hammond organ in the beginning, but there is church organ solo.
Oh yes, and that part in the middle, yeah. Basically, uh, I've always been a lover of the church organ. Like I whenever I used to have to go to church with my parents when I was younger, I was always kind of like, oh, Sunday, oh no, I didn't want to have to listen to this guy, because our priest at our church was very slow talking, and then everybody was like, because he was so calm and mellow. This guy, you couldn't get through it without falling asleep. But I always loved that we had a guy that had this fantastic pipe organ. The church had a great organ, and that was my big thing, is that I would go as long as I could stay after it was done and listen to the guy, because he would play out people leaving, right? When he would sit there and play all these like Bach pieces and stuff on the organ, and I loved it. So I've always had a soft spot for that sort of church organ. And on this keyboard here to my right, the Yamaha EX7 has a fantastic setting called Cathedral, and I wanted to use it in that section. And it was almost sort of like like a mini hymn. I thought of it that way, for people who were leaving their area, and getting away, and almost like a silent prayer for the burnt houses and animals. Almost like I kind of looked at it that way. You might see it a little silly, but I thought it fit pretty nicely in there.
Yeah, it worked really well. Then I also wrote there was a Moog type synth in there. I didn't write solo, but the Moog type synth.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. And again, I love my Moogs and stuff like that. I have the Gaia here. I have my Novation base station keyboards, and they all have fantastic Moog sounds in there. So, I love progressive rock. And I'm a big Rick Wakeman fan. I've said it before, I'm sure, on your podcast a few times. I have a pretty big collection of Rick Wakeman stuff. The vinyl, CDs, all kinds of
almost
stuff.
Everything.
Oh yeah, I love it. I have no shame to say I even have like his the Rick Wakeman Family album. I have his Rick Wakeman Gospels album. I have everything that he's put out. I have on vinyl, and I love his playing. So it sometimes might appear in some of my play.
But the thing is, it all works in racing, Race to the Flame. That 12, because it's 12 minutes. The lyrics are great, but the music is driving with the guitars, the bass, and drum, the different keyboards. So yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
So the song "The Promised Land." My notes. I wrote "Rush."
Yes.
The start, the beginning, it sounds like almost like a 12-string electric guitar. Then it goes to the 70 era synth, and then you have this driving lead guitar line going through it. Talk about the Promised Land.
Yeah. Actually, it's this Promised Life. It's called, right?
Sorry, Promised Life.
Yeah. And basically, this one you're pretty spot on. The beginning was very much a 12-string type affair. I have, as you know, I have my double neck guitar behind me, the 12.6. Came out there, kind of, found a nice setting for it, made the beginning for it, and then of course that sort of keyboard line I went over top of that do 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 that I put on top there was kind of sort of haunting in there. I was like, okay, that works nicely, so I kept that in there, and then I wanted to make this one a little bit more driving, a little bit more angst because of the topic matter. Now, the topic matter in this, I'm sure that, again, this is not exclusive to Canada, but it is something that's been on people's minds here quite a lot, and that is immigration. And what I meant to write about in here is that there was a very well-known segment of time here that I remember where our Prime Minister, Mr. Trudeau here, was openly bringing in people to Canada to say, come to our country. We have lots of space and blah 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 blah, and and he was big about saying that we're the melting pot and this and that. But of course, one thing that he seems to forget about, Mr. Trudeau, is that once you bring them here, you have to put them somewhere. Okay. And there was a great segment here on the news where they were saying there was a group of people. I believe it was from I don't remember if it was from one of like those Albania countries or somewhere in Europe where they brought them over and they landed. They shook hands with the prime minister and everything. They came in, and next thing you know, they didn't know where to put them. They didn't have any place to put them, and they ended up sleeping in church basements for months. And then after that, they had to get them out of the church basements, and some of these people ended up sleeping on the streets. And I thought this was absolutely ridiculous. Why are you telling people to come here and bringing them over when they're going to end up in maybe worse condition than they were in their own homeland? At least back home, they had a house, they had a home. Sure, maybe they were under fire and maybe it was dangerous, but they had a roof over their head. You know what I mean? Like, you bring them here and then now they don't have nothing. I just wish that our country would sometimes take a little bit more, pay more attention to these details and take care of it. Because I'm telling you, like, even in Toronto here, Preston, there's a lot of places here that are like boarded up, buildings that are like half empty and stuff like that. And if the government spent a little bit of money and fixed up these places, they don't have to be palaces, but just make them livable, there'd be lots of places to put these people in. And, they'll find jobs. Sure, you can, you might have to start out at a McDonald's or something like that at first, but you can always make your way up from that. People just want to come here, have an opportunity to make something of themselves. But it's hard to do that when you're living on the street and have no money because you can't have a job because you have nowhere to. You know what I mean? That's something that's very important to me, is to kind of correct this sort of situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, very poignant lyrics, not preachy at all. Musically, extremely diverse album. I usually when I try to think usually when I write a review, I like to think about, okay, what are my favorite songs? I pick those out.
Yeah.
And here I'm really struggling because I mean they all are extremely strong. So I don't know, Mark. Yeah, The Promised Life is wonderful, and I love the synth sound. Like I talked about the intro guitar, then the lead guitar throughout the entire song, fantastic. So yeah, great stuff. So October 31st, the album comes out. Are you going to release another single before then, or?
I was thinking about it, but I think I'm going to leave it at just this one right now, because 31st is not that far away.
Right.
But what I am doing is I am doing these sort of one or 1.5 2 minute videos, kind of talking about the songs that I'm putting on my YouTube channel. I try to keep people interested that way. As long as I'm going to be doing another one of those before this comes out, probably another 2 more. I might talk about the ghost ship, and I might even actually do a little short video about Racing the Flames as well, just to give it a little bit more detail as well. And of course, your video here will be fantastic to help with that as well. For people who want to know the dialogue or the topic that's being talked about in the song. So I'm going to probably keep it at one right now, but I think that I think people are getting very interested in it. I am noticing that people are asking about the record. You were the first, of course, and I will always let you be one of the first people to talk to me about these records, because you've been extremely helpful and very loyal to Projekt Gemineye, and I extremely am grateful to you, Preston, for being such a supporter of this band and the project that I do. So, but other people are starting to ask for me to appear as well, so that's a good sign,
Good sign. So let me ask a question I always ask you, Mark, and I am very fortunate to have every Projekt Gemineye album on CD and on vinyl.
Yes.
And if you don't know out there, the vinyls are the colored vinyl. They're all different. They're all special, and they all have an insert, and they all have details in terms of lyrics. So are we going to get a Projekt Gemineye Canada Myths and Stories vinyl?
Absolutely. You will absolutely get a CD and a vinyl coming from this. And I have some good ideas for the extras, because you know me, I never put out a vinyl record without any sort of extra. And of course, being that I'm a Canadian, the extras now, the ideas came plentiful to me. What I could possibly put in as an extra. So I think that people will be pleased with this release, not only musically, but to have something with it while you're listening to it. Because I think it's very important. I mean, having the lyrics, I think, is important to follow along. And having some of these things as well sets a mood. I mean, as you remember, back in the time when I did the In the Year 3073 series, I added things like, like a plane ticket for the ship that escaped the Earth, right? All these little things give it a sort of feel to it, like, oh, I got a ticket, like it's almost feels like you're going to be one of the people leaving the planet when you have that ticket, right? So I like doing those sort of things, and that's strictly because of my love of Kiss and bands like that used to add those kind of things in their vinyl release when they were popular.
I mean, the music's great. It is.
Yeah.
If you bought the download and listened to it, it's great music. But the packaging for your Project Gemini series has always been great. Love the inserts, posters. I frame all of them, and
Wow, that's great.
be able to read them and have a numbered series vinyl album. So looking forward to that, Mark. Anything else you want to add?
Yeah, because of how it has been timed, as you noticed, the single came out on Canadian Thanksgiving, so that was purposefully done as a Canadian tribute. Halloween is always a fun time of the year to put out a record, so I thought that'd be another great time to release the record as a whole. The digital release obviously will be out in full on the 31st. The CDs might be able to get done by Halloween. Right now, I'm not going to say it for sure, but people will be able to order the CDs for sure. Right now, the artwork is being worked on right now. I have the album cover and some other little pieces of it already done, so that's good. And usually this doesn't take too long. The CD part, I mean, it goes by very quickly. I mean, I think it's like 2-3 weeks and it's done. Just to show you how quickly it is, Preston, you might recognize this. This is the Dark Monarchy album.
Yep.
The new one, and it's already done. I already received the CD, so yours has been packaged already and is ready to go. Friday, I believe I'll be sending yours out in the mail. So the CDs doesn't take long, but of course the vinyl, there's a little bit more of a wait. Now this time, I think I timed it beautifully because, as I mentioned in one of my videos, I didn't want to get the vinyl right before Christmas because, as you know, mailing things at Christmas time is a nightmare. Not only in terms of the wait for it, because sometimes it gets overrun with stuff, but things get damaged a lot during that time of year because they have so much stuff in their trucks to move around. I've timed it now that I'm pretty sure the vinyl will be in my hands after Christmas and most likely after New Year, probably like January. So that's fine by me. And I'm sure most people will be happy with that too, because it'll be after all the brouhaha and you can spend the new year listening to the Project Gemini album on vinyl. And then just one last thing. I'll be mixing the next record. I have no idea what it's called, but I already have the next record pretty much done. So in the new year, we'll have another Project Gemini album to talk about, Preston.
Oh, I'm looking forward to that, Mark. Canada Myths and Stories is fantastic. I'm looking forward to the CD, and I'll wait for the vinyl as well. Mark, and you're just amazing. You just churn out quality, and great vocals, great stories, and the playing is out of this world, man. Good work. Congratulations.
Thank you, Preston. Thank you very much. And thank you for your support. I really do appreciate it.
Absolutely. So again, Canada Myths and Stories will be out October 31st. Check out on Bandcamp and check Mark out on Facebook and as well as YouTube. And Mark, anywhere else you want to plug?
I also have a Instagram page. I do talk about Project Gemini stuff there a little bit, but mainly what that is that I show my record collection quite a bit on there. So if anybody's interested in seeing some of my vast David Bowie or Rick Wakeman or Yes or Rush vinyl, it's on there. So I'm pretty sure I'm pretty easy to find. So
I'll check it out. So becoming a Rush vinyl fan. I'm trying to collect some of that stuff. So good work, man. You take care of yourself, and I'll talk to you.
All right. Thank you.
Bye. Mark, anything else?
No, I think we went over everything. Unless you have anything you want to ask before we head off.
No, I'm gonna, like I said, get the video up tomorrow, work on the reviews, and I'll let you know, and I'll send you a link when all that stuff is done.
Thank you so much, Preston. I really appreciate it.
Fascinating album. Thank you, Mark.
All right, take care.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.